Hey everyone, this is Jonathan and the rest of the EthStaker crew. Welcome to Community Call 49. This is our first EthStaker Community Call of the year, so excited to kick things off for 2025 here. And we have a special guest with us today, the team from Obol and DV Labs. We have Oisin Kine and Anthony Berlino with us. So we're going to talk with them about what they've been building and specifically what they launched this week. They they came out with a number of new things that were announced just on Tuesday, right, guys? And we want to understand, help educate the community of stakers and solo stakers and independent operators out there about what's new there, and discuss about everything from the ecosystem to the token to governance, and just have a time for Q&A as well from the community. So yeah, we're really just like in a curious learning mindset here and wanting to hear from you guys what you've built and what's new. So maybe you can start with just giving you a chance, both of you, to introduce yourselves, and then we can get into an overview of those things to get started. Does that work?
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Cool.
Oisin,
Yeah.
feel free to take it away.
Sure. Nice to see you again, Jonathan, and nice to be on the EthStaker live stream. My name is Oisin. I'm CTO and co-founder at DV Labs. My background, I joined Consensus in 2018 and wrote my first ETH staking article back then, worrying about stake centralization. I built Blockdaemon ETH2 staking for them at Genesis and ran that up to a very large size, and then started Obol in mid-2021 with Colin Myers to decentralize stake with what we now know is distributed validator technology. And I'll throw it over to Anthony to say hi.
Amazing. Hi. I'm Anthony Berlino, head of ecosystem at DV Labs. Originally discovered and fell in love with Ethereum in 2017, sort of learning about the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and then spent way too much time on ETH Trader, while I was at work. Very quickly transitioned to kind of full-time investing, operating, and writing in the space. In 2019, I wrote a few sort of like early fundamental analysis and narrative pieces that I was very, welcomed into the Ethereum community and got to meet so many amazing people. Later, I co-founded I Trust Capital, the first crypto IRA platform in America. Later joined POAP as the first growth hire and did a lot of great things around digital collectibles, precious digital collectibles. And now head of ecosystem at DV Labs. Super excited to continue to help Ethereum decentralize and give more opportunities and more rewards for operators all over the world.
Cool. So maybe we can get started with just like understanding what you guys announced this week. I'm sure many people have seen the Tuesday announcements about what's new with the Obol Collective. Maybe we could just hear it from your own words, what people should know and what's new there for them to look at and consider.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Well, I can kick it off. The headline that a lot of people saw was an airdrop to solo stakers and rocket pool node operators, and as well as CSM operators as well in Lido. But what I think is there's a better and more exciting thing that kind of is happening, and that's the main umbrella thing, which is sort of the decentralized operator ecosystem. So a decentralized operator ecosystem. And this is really the heart of the Obol collective, right? It's an ecosystem of home operators, semi-professional operators, professional operators, dozens of industry leading companies who are all working together to sort of decentralize infrastructure networks and protocols. And there's kind of a lot of pieces in the decentralized operator ecosystem. There's four, plus sort of the retroactive fund, plus the token. Before we kind of mention those pillars, Oisin, would love to see how you felt about the announcement and anything that you were the most excited about.
Yeah, I think the thing that I enjoyed the most was seeing all the different partners and companies within the collective retweeting and quote tweeting it, talking about when they first got involved. We were running 10 machines on Holesky or the equivalent testnets further back, to running a reasonably large amount of stake on mainnet and having plans to grow that number quite a lot in the coming few months. So yeah, that, and then maybe a slight bit of daunting about all of the plans to scale and grow this decentralized operator ecosystem to newer use cases and ways to decentralize like more services in Web3.
Heck yeah.
Okay. So
I can keep trucking along on the story if you'd like, or happy to go to a formal question, whatever you feel.
yeah, I mean, um, and so like the decentralized operator ecosystem, I mean, there have been people like that's what's can you help us understand like what is new about that as of this week? And like I know that there's a whole component of like this token kind of coming into existence, and there's going to be a whole claim process for people, right? And that there's like utility there. So I think that we're interested to understand how that how people can be thinking about that because an airdrop is one thing, and it's like, okay, is this just a token that you take and do what you want with it, or is there like specific things that people can be thinking about in the context of, you know, uh, how does this augment what I'm doing with staking or what I can do within the ecosystem, right? Like, how does it
Yeah.
complement that? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I don't care to talk too much about the token today, although that is a piece of the Obol Collective and a piece of the decentralized operator ecosystem. I think if we zoom out and we think about like what is the vision, decentralized operator ecosystem, what does that even mean? And the high note is like more opportunities and more rewards for operators, but also better performing validators, right? A lot of these things benefiting operators. For sort of networks and protocols, it's more decentralization, more security, better performance. Um, and the decentralized operator ecosystem probably need to find a way to say that shorter. DOE sounds like a doe, a deer. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's four pillars, okay, and wrapped around it is the retroactive fund. Pillar number one, operators. I don't need to opine too much on this, but normal Ethereum community members, normal people around the world running boxes in their home to decentralize networks. The second piece, and Oshin will have a lot of great things to say about this, is technology. I often might call this like operator technology. The first major piece of technology that sort of DV Labs has built is various components within the Obol product suite, sometimes called like the modular staking stack. The third piece is decentralized infrastructure networks and or protocols. So, and I also consider these like opportunities, right? So you have operators, you have tech, maybe operator tech, and then you have networks, which are really opportunities at the end of the day for operators. And then the fourth thing is credentials. The first being the Obol Technique credential. There's multiple tiers. 3,000 people on testnet have earned the Obol Technique credential, 600 on mainnet. And this is a verifiable attestation, which we can get into. And having come from POAP, I feel quite passionate about collectibles and memories, but also something new, which is credentials. And that's very different than the POAP vision, which I also love. And this is something that's kind of uniquely new. And then all wrapped around this is the retroactive fund. And so we can probably dig into these different pieces. I feel like almost everyone listening to this would be an operator. And so they're like, wait, tell me about this technology. Tell me about these opportunities. Tell me about these credentials. And what's this economic model to RAF? And so, yeah, but yeah, just super excited. It's a complex story, but the EthStaker community, the Ethereum community will see kind of the meat and potatoes behind it when they start to think about it.
Okay. Let's see. Um, so in terms of, let's see, like I think if we talk about maybe like the governance process that's maybe being introduced here, like it seems like there's the forum and like this ability for proposals and then voting on the proposals that will come with the tokens that'll be out there, right? And so I'm curious to understand how we would go about like what people would do with that. Like, is there a process for submitting a proposal for anything to change, and what kinds of things would you guys envision um, that envision being changed in the ecosystem that you're building? Like, what kinds of things might people want to build or see proposed? Does it make sense? Like, what
Yeah,
that life cycle is?
of course. Yeah, so governance within the Obol Collective is obviously, critical to its functioning. The Obol token will function as sort of the governance, a strong piece of the governance mechanism. when it comes to building things in the community, contributing and proposals, and particularly the RAF, that's what I'm most excited about. Oshin, maybe you can tell them a little about the RAF and what makes you excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's the right place to start as we talk about, governance mostly revolves around what's valuable to govern and like what are these public goods and decentralization that we're trying to fund. So I, as I alluded to, have been in the space for quite a long time. In about 2019, there was a contentious EIP where they suggested to direct 1% of the, at the time, proof of work reward towards a dev fund that would be allocated to fund all of the kind of core development that Ethereum and all of us kind of use and leverage to run the network. At the time, to maybe TLDR it, I would say that they were like, it's not sensible to put this into the core protocol. It might get compromised along the way. It might not evolve fast enough, etc. That said, we think now, a number of years later, with Obol and a decentralized operator ecosystem, we have been running what we call a 1% for decentralization program since effectively we put Obol live on mainnet. And everyone that's adopting Obol using distributed validators within their stack are contributing 1% of their staking rewards to what will be a retroactive fund. We'll be announcing more about it in the coming week, give or take, or in next week. And the idea is that the revenue that these decentralized operators and networks are accruing will be giving a portion to a retroactive fund. And the Obol token holders will be voting or delegating their vote to someone else to vote on who has brought the most value here, who is where these funds should be allocated to. There's a lot of people in the EthStaker community in particular that do a lot of education, tooling, resources, guides, ways to get involved in decentralized Ethereum. And what we're really hoping to do is kickstart a viable, circular economy here where people are quite happy to contribute some of their rewards. They get a massive amount of, tooling and products and features for it. And they feel like it's going to the right places because they have a say in the network. They have say in governance and they, distribute those rewards to the people that are adding the most value. And yeah, that extra level up, obviously, the Obol token will be a token house and will have votes in the DAO sense that we're all quite kind of familiar with. But I think focusing on the RAF and the retroactive funding model and that like circular economy is what we really are hoping to, bootstrap and kickstart as part of Obol.
Yeah. To piggyback on that, it's like, there's a lot of conversation right now around EF leadership, EF capital allocation. And there's often conversation around, how are we funding public goods? And the way we see it at the Obol Collective is there's this amazing base layer, global settlement layer called Ethereum. And anyone who wants to run higher performing, more slashing resistant, easier to manage validators can run distributed validators. And individuals and institutions, operators who are running these distributed validators are opting in 1% of the ETH staking rewards. So the most pristine asset in the whole industry, 1% of those rewards, a sustainable sort of stream because it's the beacon chain, are going into this retroactive fund. So 1% for decentralization, right? Sort of the motto. And now we can have this amazing community members and, Ethereum staking community, people in the Obol Collective go after this sort of retroactive funding. And it's great because it's retroactive. So you have to sort of show what you have done and the community will govern it. And I'm very excited about these sort of circular economies that we can build, sort of the regenerative refi type of movement. And again, it all comes back to the decentralized operator ecosystem. It has operators, it has technology, it has networks, which are the opportunities for operators, and it has credentials. And the wrapper is what we're talking about now, the RAF. That's going to make this thing be sustained for all, many, many, many years in the future for Ethereum, decades, maybe centuries, who knows? I think we're all very confident in Ethereum here and Ethereum validators.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the token. Is it mostly a governance token? And how does it accrue value? That's the part I'm missing.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So I'm not the biggest token guy, like an early Ethereum community member. I'm an operator first and foremost. So I'm excited about, better operator technology that I can run, more opportunities for me as an operator to validate and decentralize infrastructure at home. Like I personally like run boxes at home to decentralize Ethereum. For me, when it comes to tokens, I have more like personally a philosophical view, and it's more of like I want to have ownership in this thing to govern. And for me personally, I look forward to having Obol tokens to be able to help decide where this money goes. And I want personally, and this is just my view, I will be voting for people who I feel have retroactively done great things to expand more boxes and more homes, like the true, hardcore home operators, ideally in emerging economies, ideally where you might not have 1 gigabit internet, but your bandwidth is fast enough to validate sort of the beacon chain. Yeah, Oshin, maybe you can give, kind of your opinion around it. And just to clarify, there's an Obol association. There's a whole different entity. We're at DV Labs. We're kind of, focusing on a lot of the technology, which is right now is the Obol product suite, which I'd love to talk about. If you guys are very interested in the token, we'd love to have people from the Obol association come, and they can dig really deep, but I can give my opinions, and maybe Oshin, you can share yours as well.
Yeah, I think copy and pasting that caveat. I think the plan is to create value first more than extract value. And the goal there is to build a network, economy of people running nodes, benefiting from this decentralization. And, a world of more direct value capture versus indirect is something that I think will be a decision for governance as the network and DAO matures.
Okay, I will try to live with those answers.
Don't hate the player, hit the game.
And it's like,
and the governance forum is live, again, managed by the association, but like, if you have these questions and you are interested in governance, particularly as a person who, as part of EthStaker, probably cares about Ethereum education and funding for this entity with how things are changing at the EF and your guys' funding, I think, would love to have you guys involved in that. I plan to be actively involved as home validator.eth myself.
And to someone that's made a lot of open source public goods for the ETH2 space, Buddha, that hasn't been forgotten either.
Yeah, the way I'm seeing it is, I mean, how does the token make Obol better? That's the part I'm missing.
I would probably say that it's this, if you believe in quadratic funding being a better capital allocator than top-down centralized ecosystems, you need in some manner a way to tap into like a wider network of people and use a sensible allocation mechanism that square roots. And there's more than just quadratic funding. Maybe we'll be doing it rounds. Maybe there'll be a world we'll try some of the more exotic variants. But yeah, I think if we want to realistically believe in a sustainable, 10, 20-year fashion, we want to allocate value to the things providing value. I think it needs something a bit more decentralized than a committee, a core team, something like it, trying to figure out where do we best spend money to decentralize Ethereum and the related networks.
okay. And it sounds like it's like just structurally how it's working too. It sounds like the claiming is like for the NFT now, and then there's like a period of time before where people can like choose to delegate. Am I reading all that right? And so it's interesting, I guess, from that standpoint that there's this like period for education and learning about what's going on. It seems like that's is that the intention that you guys have built into how that's functioning? Okay.
Yeah, I think quite deliberately you do it, Anthony.
Yeah, well, so Oshin's always good to help, like, talk on these more philosophical levels, is like why certain people feel a certain way, and like the real fundamental reasons why, excuse me, things that come back to fundamental values, which often are shared values. And now, you guys want to talk super, super tactical, and we can get super, super low level, which is, you'll be able to claim your tokens and delegate them to delegates. It's a very similar governance structure that most people have personally seen. Anyone can be a delegate. Some people have already started applying. And ultimately, I think that you guys will want to, anyone who claims will want to delegate to someone they feel will make decisions in the best of their interest. ideally people or individuals or governance collectives who are privy to kind of the nuances around maybe how to allocate this capital, because it's not allocating capital for a DeFi app. It's not allocating capital for a derivatives desk or a derivatives decentralized platform. I don't know, Hyperliquid or Synthetics. It is for the broader Ethereum sort of deep core staking and operators, right? Operators, tech, opportunities for them, credentials. And so, yeah, you'll be able to choose who, and there'll be, I'm sure there'll be many great ones. And Oisin, yeah, you probably have good color to share.
I think you covered the main one. Partly the reason on the locking has been to force people to, go with the plan, which is take part in RAF. You'll be able to delegate. I should also say to yourself, I strongly encourage people if they want to get involved to just self-delegate and make their vote. But we'll be running a RAF campaign through the month of February, and then after that, it'll be moving towards governance for a vote to decide what to do with the lock.
And furthermore, for people who are, always happy to put on my CFA cap, if anyone ever wants to discuss like revenues, cash flows, things like that, that's probably not right for sort of governance crypto assets tokens. I know some people think about that is, what is this value capture? I personally expect there to be a reasonable percentage of the beacon chain running on DVs, contributing to the 1%. I expect additional chains and a lot of different networks and protocols to be utilizing technology from within the Obol collective. And many of them, or most of them, sending their contributions to the retroactive fund, and essentially the Obol governance structure managing that RAF and it making very great pragmatic decisions, and likely around, very important decisions over time.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's most interesting about the DV technology is that it's creating a different space for operators where you've got, obviously the whole concept is how can I tackle this with less than 32 ETH for a solo stake, but still have a sense of independence, and this is where you guys talk about, obviously the squad coming together and forming that with people, and then, putting forward a validator, right? Ultimately your software is doing that. So I guess what would, I'm not sure if the question is what's your call to action, but what is it, what would you say is the kind of fresh thing that you would want people to consider, whether they're currently a staker? Because obviously, this is targeting, you're part of the airdrop being for solo stakers and rocket pool operators. There's definitely a commitment you guys seem to have for those independent operators, and speaking to that, and obviously being here in this forum is you're speaking to that audience. And so it's what is it that you would call for people to look at and look at anew, I guess, from what they're seeing this week?
Yeah. I think that is kind of the core thing, right? If there's 4 pillars of the decentralized operator ecosystem, and one of them is the RAF, I feel like we've kind of done a good job of talking about the RAF and sort of the token, which is related to that. I'm super excited about the other 4 areas as well. And so the first being operators, we probably don't need to talk too much about that. I feel like we all understand what that is. The second big piece is technology. Oisin, maybe you can share about, kind of the Obol product suite, what you feel like has been made so far, and maybe the vision of what you think could be in this bucket or pillar of technology. And then maybe we can move down to networks or opportunities after. Because me as an operator, I want everyone to know that there's a lot of opportunities coming, and it ultimately will be more rewards and more opportunities. And maybe let's talk about tech first.
Yeah, I think you make a good call out to break it down, the value prop for the different segments. You first mentioned operators, where there's an EthStaker call. Most of us are home operators, things like it. For this group, what I really want about distributed validators is it grows the access to taking part in Ethereum. Taking part in Ethereum, for the most part, it depends on when you found out about ETH and when you got involved. I laugh. I was reading an article I wrote previously when I first heard about staking Ethereum. It was 1,500 ETH, or about $300,000, and I was like, I'll never be able to validate Ethereum. This sucks. And I wrote an article about it in 2018, to be honest. And then obviously it came down to 32 ETH, which back in 2019, 2020 was much more achievable. And we're back to a world where if we're honest, most solo stakers, they can't really get a foot in the door solo all themselves, all on their own. However, that doesn't mean that there's been a huge amount of innovation at the like L1 and then at the protocol layer beyond it for people to get involved. Things like, Rocket Pool, Lido CSM, there's ways you can get involved in protocols to reduce the amount you have to put up. But then you also have distributed validators and this idea of squad staking. If you have a squad, you have a group of people, it's more acceptable to trust them to bring them involved. So whether your squad is putting up a bit of capital to go for a full 32 ETH and running things like solo as a squad, you can do that. Or even you can team up as a group and try and go into CSM or like Rocket Pool mini pools, which have a lower capital barrier. But in all cases, I think distributed validators help, up the access to Ethereum. I think it scales the consensus set, bringing on more full nodes, even if they're, validating in groups. This is what Ethereum extremely needs when it comes to full dank sharding or full data availability sampling. We will have more scale if we have more sampling nodes. So being able to keep more and more operators at more or less any level of capital they can put up involved will be good for Ethereum in the long run. And yeah, we can talk more about the tech and the kind of upside for the protocols and stuff, but I'll pause there for a minute first.
And you talked about the squad staking. What exactly is that? I've been trying to wrap my hand around this. Maybe I'm missing something.
Squad! Yeah. Yeah. So squad staking.
DevCon, right? that was pretty.
Yeah.
A good moment.
Yeah. So I think squad staking is cool where everyone has their own interpretation. And I think it's something kind of like Ethereum where it kind of like choose your own adventure, but there's some like foundational things about it. So squad staking to me is like a group of individuals who will squad up and form a squad. This can sometimes be teams like Aragon, internal, their team, Aragon DAO, one of the core teams, they, worked together and formed a team squad and got a validator online. So working together with groups of people, it can be a team, a community, a bunch of bros, right? It can be an EthStaker squad. And they jointly run an Ethereum validator using distributed validators. And this provides all of the value propositions or benefits of distributed validators, right? Lower barrier to entry, higher performance, more slashing resistance, both lower technical barrier. For me personally, key generation, I feel much better with a DKG than wanting to go deal with a cold machine and moving the keys over, etc. But also in terms of the barrier to entry on the financial side, right? If you want to have like a vanilla Ethereum validator, it's 32 ETH. If you are running an Ethereum validator with a squad, it's still 32 ETH, but now it's divided between you and your squad. And luckily, and this gets more into opportunities, which we can talk about, the technology enables opportunities like EtherFi Solo Staker. If you run as a squad, you can get integrated into EtherFi's operator set, sort of in this curated operator set, and you don't even have to put up a bond. And that's because of the benefits that come from distributed validators. Oshin probably has a slightly better nuanced take. This is me as like a kind of ragtag home operator.
No, I think you hit on all the important points. You can, run as a group. It makes it a lot easier to run a node. If your machine is out, it's not the end of the world. Your squad has your back.
And then you just, yell squad and you just feel better. It's like a dopamine boost. I don't know why. I just do it.
So in terms of like the formation of those squads, it sounds like it's like this kind of organic process, right? Like it's not like automated through the software, but I don't know if that's like something that would be in the future potentially of interest. Like maybe that could even be a proposal one day, or like, how are you guys thinking about that part? Or is it actually like maybe a feature to be organically forming, like and having this kind of like layer of social quality to it? Like, is that the way that you all are thinking about like that element is necessarily that way? I guess I'm just trying to get myself to like think or understand how that's being thought of.
Totally. There's a technical component which Oshin can kind of dive into of like current state, potential future states. For me personally, right now, I do love that it's mostly social because for me, it's helped bring a deeper connection with my squad mates, and kind of like we align on these values. We actually know and we talk. So we were not like sort of matched through an algorithm. We had a loose relationship, and that relationship has actually expanded over time. And now we're like a really good group of friends. And, we like to say like, our validator cannot be shut down by any even government entity. Like if they come knock down my door, like it's okay, my squad has my back. That validator is not going offline. Like the censorship resistance for Ethereum will remain. On the technology side, there's probably different ways that the Obol collective could build. And Oshin, would love to hear your opinions on it.
Yeah, so it was absolutely deliberate in why we got rolling. So back in maybe 2021 or so, we called this a lazy validator problem. And I was really agonizing over how to make this kind of perfect algorithm that would punish people offline, but only fairly, and they couldn't cheat it or come up with a way to kind of like not get penalized. And after like sweating and getting like tearing myself up in knots, I was like, you know what, let's make one that, just best effort, and that people solve it on the human layer for the first while as to whether or not they think people are like pulling their weight and stuff. Generally speaking, these things aren't necessarily perfect. People's nodes do go offline. You have to hit them up, and sometimes they're like, I don't know, man, there's a storm and my power's gone out. And you go, no problem, that's not really your fault. Like just, bring it back up when you've power back, and things like it. So yeah, we deliberately kind of stylistically went down the route of run with people preferably, or people you're willing to trust, work together as a team, squad, good vibes, help each other out. And I think that has allowed people to build, really high performing, tight-knit squads that work very well, versus something where you've, no relation to them. You're like, if they go offline, they get penalized. I'm not as loyal to them or anything. As for whether we can, automate this or kind of speed it up or help people match, this is where we put a lot of focus on credentialing and trying to kind of put some level of stamp of approval to say, we think this person can run on mainnet. They've run for 60 days as part of this program or this squad, and they've sent us metrics. We think they seem reasonably legit. Here is a silver technique as a level of approval. So 600 mainnet operators have kind of met this level so far, and we're hoping to kind of grow that by a few multiples next year. And that's kind of one of the main precursors to saying automatic yes, being I don't really care if they're all technically silver rated. That's kind of the thing that people are starting to get more comfortable with as this kind of brand and standard improves, and as monitoring improves. Hector will be a big upgrade because now you can force exit if anything goes wrong. Before that, there was some risk that you needed your operators to exit if you would delegate it to them. Whereas post Pectra, if everything goes really poorly, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna sign an exit here and walk away. So yeah, that's kind of the ideology behind it.
Cool. Yeah. And so there's a question from YouTube that maybe I'll turn into a two-part question. This you can see in our chat here around how many nodes can a cluster include, or is it a range, a min-max allowed or something? And maybe I would also, I'm just kind of intrigued by this real life experience of forming them, because it seems like there's a lot of different ways to go about that maybe no one way would be the same, right? Which is also kind of interesting, because that's what decentralization, that is a decentralized way of doing it, where you have that freedom to control how you have it set up. If you're going to use a squad, how, no one's telling you exactly how to do that. So yeah, but if there's a number of nodes, that would be interesting to understand. And then the other part, I guess the second part of it is, do you guys find any suggested practices or things that are best practices with geo kind of proximity? Because I think there's this idea of latency, and you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. If there's, I don't know if there's documentation about this, or just things you've learned over time about that. So yeah, two parts.
Yes. So there's absolutely documentation on both. As for the node size, technically you can run as few as 3, but roughly speaking, we tell everyone the minimum is 4. The difference is that 4 is the theoretic minimum you can have for what's called Byzantine fault tolerance, meaning if one of the people are evil, you need 3 more honest nodes to continue online, uninterrupted. At 3, if one of them is evil, the other person can't figure out which one's lying to them, if you know what I mean. So 4 is usually the minimum if you're running multi-party, slightly untrusted. As for a maximum, there is no technical maximum. It really just becomes a question of economics and performance. 10 machines is quite a lot of machines to run and mind, 14. There's a bit of a diminishing margin of return, you might say, but we have run on like, small test setups into the 30s. And it's like viable from a technical perspective. But yeah, we in mainnet we don't really run much more than 10, as far as I know.
Yeah, and
And
then
then for the
kind
second
of to
question.
just
Go on.
yeah, to kind of opine on Jonathan what you said, and that's why I like that it's not algorithmically matching. You make your own decisions, and it is the core of decentralization. Like this is not a network, right? This is a decentralized operator ecosystem. Operators using technology who are kind of forming these squads, and they make their own rules. They run the configuration they want based on sort of the modular staking stack of the options that they have. Um, and then this layers into 3 and 4, which is sort of opportunities and credentials. The credentialing is important because, coming from POAP, we have this amazing on-chain precious digital collectibles which show memories and memories of important things. I always like to say, like, when I'm 80 years old, I'm going to look at my POAP collection and reminisce of all the great days. But I also want to be able to show you that I have a strong credential as a home operator, and I might not be a P2P or another one of these large entities, but I promise you, my squad are performing as good as them, even though we are not the most sophisticated actors, and we are decentralizing Ethereum even more, and that's thanks to the power of the technology, right? But now we have a credential which shows we in fact can run high performing validators. And then that moves into opportunities, which I think is worth talking about here later, which is like there's real opportunities now for operators to have more rewards, more opportunities, better performing validators, and the credentialing and the technology are important pillars of that.
I'm curious how the squad matching happens. So if I'm a solo staker with 32 ETH, how do I find someone for my squad?
Yeah, so the most recommended is you go to ETH Denver and then you just shout squad, and then soon people will come and you'll like be able to form. But no, just kidding. Personally, I'd say, do you have a team that you work with who kind of is interested in this technology? Do you have a group of friends? Do you have a community, online or local community? If you have any of those things, you probably could form a squad, if they're interested, especially if you're involved as an operator in sort of like, the operator communities. On the technological side, Oshin, maybe you can kind of talk about that. I can say there's an early fringe technology that one of the community members is making, which will probably go to the RAF. And again, that's the great thing about, decentralized communities, is it's sort of like a squad matchmaking tool where you can kind of fill out your information, verify what your skill is, etc., and then it will all algorithmically throw you into kind of different communication channels. This is not a core part of the stack, right? This is like at the edge communities, community member, experimenting. And so if you feel passionately, you're like, hey, I actually wish something existed. Man, that's where the retroactive funding model comes in, But Oshin, maybe you have some opinions.
Yeah, I think coming back to the social side of it, I would say the best place for you, Buddha, would be throw a message in the EthStaker Discord and say, hey, any solo stakers with a bit of extra time, my continent, would you be open to like running an extra key for me? And then like people, the idea when it comes to the decentralized operator ecosystem and whatnot is that there are easy ways to pick up and add on, an extra Karen and validator client to your ETH Docker setup or things like it. But yes, there are, Discord forums. You can go to the Explorer page and find like accredited people that you don't know. But my suggestion in the earlier term is to get used to it is, run stake with your friends.
Yeah, I was just curious if you guys provide some kind of platform to match them, but yeah, got my answer.
Yeah. I mean, in the current Obol product suite of what, has been built by DV Labs, there's a lot of great things there. Like there's the foundation, which is, Charon, sort of that like base layer. There's like validator configuration with the launchpad and SDK. There's also a lot of great node launchers, which are not just from DV Labs, but other people who've built technology in the ecosystem, where it's, the DApp node or the Sedge or Ansible. And, we have a CDVN that DV Labs helped build. Then there's also a way to configure rewards with Obol splits. But when it comes to squad matchmaking, that technology could be built in a lot of different ways. One community member has taken upon themselves to build something sort of fringe, and a lot of things could be built. And so, it's a reasonable request for sure.
I want to jump up to a question we had about like, okay, back around like the node kind of operators forming together and like how you kind of look at the economic side of that with like the hardware costs and the like different ROI amounts depending on how you have it set up. And if you're like, because you can also have it where someone's, 20% of the stake or 60% of the stake, right? Like, so everybody's kind of got a different calculus going there. Um, how do you view
Yeah.
that? And is it like does it inform the way you think about things too, like protocol development? Maybe that's tangential a little bit, but like when you talk about like bigger node requirements, which is I know a hot topic in the last few months, yeah, how does that kind of hit you guys? How does it make you think?
Yeah, I might take that one. Node operating costs is a favorite topic of mine. So if I first talk about the splitting and the contribution and the revenue sharing side, we have built what are called Obol splits. They're a set of Solidity smart contracts that are all immutable or self-sovereign, i.e., you're the kind of admin on them. There's no upgrade, there's no Oracle, there's nothing of the sort. And at the most simple, if you have 32 ETH and you can solo stake, they split the principal from the rewards. And the reward is a splits.org splitter contract, the same thing that Protocol Guild and quite a number of people use. And when you're setting it up, you can go on the launchpad.obol.org and you can type in the percentages as people are contributing. That's how me and my squad have done it. And most people are like not contributing the same amount. Similarly, there are like adapters or modifiers for things like Lido CSM. You can do the same thing, but split your CSM bond. There is one for Rocket Pool. It is not currently audited, but it is there if people want to try it Holski or Super Brave. And the idea is that yes, like people are, different setups. Maybe, for example, someone isn't putting up all of the capital or like very much capital at all, but the others are kind of cutting them in because Buddha is like, oh, I would help me if, my friends will run this. I'll give you a little more than you're contributing, but, I want to like not get pinged in the night my validator goes offline. And yeah, the operating side and the like nodes, this is something that I think the Ethereum community writ large is getting more familiar with as people discuss the idea of issuance cuts. I think everyone in this space kind of understands that, the most decentralized validator is the one often with the highest cost or the most difficulty in terms of making the most reward. So they're the most impacted by like issuance cuts. But I think reading the tea leaves, people are starting to acknowledge that and get a bit better at, minimum node specs. After you get a minimum node spec, you can put a cost for these node specs. Once you have that, you can compare that versus the reward you'll make if you, run a Rocket Pool mini pool. And all of a sudden, people will start to see what we might be a bit more familiar with, which is they're not all that, like generous right now. Unless you value your time at kind of close to zero and you don't count your internet because it's in your house, and you don't count your power because you're not really keeping track of what your machine costs. But yeah, I think as far as we go on it, we mostly stick to the products. We give people the tools, give people the contracts, let them use it as they see fit, and you end up with kind of people using them how it makes the most sense for them rather than a one size fits all type of thing.
Yeah, and then I think there's some nuance to the economics as well, because there's running an Ethereum validator and doing the standard duties and what that hardware bandwidth looks like versus the rewards. And I think the whole, meta of like what opportunities can you do will change. And I mean, so first there's like expanded validator capabilities. Maybe you're going to move from like solely at testing and proposing to like MEV auctions or restaking or pre-comps or base sequencing. There's like the whole meta of native rollups. Like, will that mean that there's like extra like execution traces that you need to do or verifying proofs? There's the whole world of based applications. You can kind of start core Ethereum validator duties and start to edge out until you get so far away where it's technically the same box, but you're like validating Gnosis chain, which is a different chain, and you can continue. Opportunities we can talk about those, but it depends how deep you want to stay to the current vanilla validator that you're running. Yeah, because Oshin mentioned CSM. We can mention EtherFi. There's these different opportunities.
Okay. I'm seeing another question here that maybe we can take a look at with this like implementing, I mean, sorry, from Beehivel here on YouTube. Yeah, in terms of like, okay, you're managing a cluster. Do you want to replace existing members? Like, is that something that you can edit or change, or are you like totally exiting and coming back with a new cluster? Like, just what does that actually look like in practice?
It's a good question. So up until now with Obol, clusters are pretty immutable. I talk about it saying good levers are okay, bad levers are not okay. If there's a world where you've 7 operators, one of them says, I want to stop, can I leave? And they're a good lever, you've not really any concern with them. They can hand over their private keys to a new operator. You can put them over there and keep running. Maybe make an edit to your splitter. This is adequate, but not fantastic. Obviously, people would prefer, perfect change of operator rotation. The one thing being super cautious and super focused on security is to try and do that with the cryptographic key resharing protocol where, you're running this type of re-DKG and all of a sudden new operators have the same key material. It's quite complicated and quite risky. And it's something that I was a bit reluctant to do. We have kind of a design principle that, we're planning for kind of $10 billion of stake. And if it's not safe under that type of level, it's not something that we should be kind of shipping. But fortunately, something very new that we're very excited about that I will announce or tease here rather than the official comms is Pectra will be bringing in a feature called consolidations, which is the idea of moving running stake from one public key to another public key. So how we will be more encouraging people to rotate in the future will be prep a new public key, whichever operators you want. It can be totally fresh if you so choose. But it's all like new key material. And then at the smart contract side, just, old pub key, new pub key, and, you don't go offline. There's no slashing risk. You're now running on a new set of operators, and it's way less scary if you're an auditor or a security conscious minded person. It's a smart contract call instead of some moon math. So yes, we should have some operator rotations too.
What I wonder what EIP that is. I'm curious. I hadn't heard of that one, so that's new to me.
It's the 2048 ETH one. It's the max effective balance.
Oh, that. Okay, that's part of that. Okay, cool.
That's
Yeah,
the
we'll be.
that's the less income tax EIP for those in the US.
Yes, depending on where you live, right? But yeah, that'll definitely be something we'll be covering in the next couple of months. I mean, obviously they're settling on the date for the actual upgrade, but then like what does that mean for validators? So that's maybe a teaser for future stuff to look, follow along with EthStaker as we do that. And obviously it relates to like if you're managing any kind of node, right? How you manage it. And if it's a DV node, there's considerations, and that's interesting. So let's see here. Is there any other, I'm just looking at the time, guys. We have like maybe 5-ish before we want to close, and I just want to make sure that we got to anything else that I know we've been kind of hopping around this plan here. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys working with us on like the conversational approach, but I think it helps us get a lot of questions from the community, and I'm just checking to see if there's any others that we had here.
Yeah, there's one thing that's probably worth just everyone understanding is like if the decentralized operator ecosystem has like these 4 big pillars, which are operators, technologies, and then like opportunities, which is like the networks and the protocols, and then credentials. I would say anyone who is an operator who is looking for opportunities, come join the community, earn a credential if you can, because we have partners who are actively looking for operators, and you need to be an operator, run some kind of technology to decentralize their protocol or network, and you can earn rewards immediately. We're doing a lot of great work with EtherFi to decentralize their operator set. We've done so with Lido as well with Simple DBT. So there's consistently, and there's more opportunities in the making, as well as Gnosis, etc. So if you like to decentralize Ethereum and or other infrastructure networks or protocols, and essentially have more rewards, come hang out.
I wanted to ask about these credentials. What is needed to get them? Like, what is the process like? Do you need to pass an exam, or like do you need to speak with someone?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that within the main pillar of credentials, I think this will evolve over time. The first credential that's in that kind of main pillar or main bucket is the Techni credential. So the Obol Techni credential is an on-chain attestation that verifies that you can run high-performing distributed validators. There is a base and a bronze version, which you earn on testnet based on certain kind of parameters, requirements, performance. And then there is also the silver Techni credential. You earn this on mainnet with real skin in the game, real performance requirements, etc. So all of these you need to perform to a certain level, and there is no exam, so to speak. This is like on chain. You have done certain performance, but I think that within the broader bucket of credentials, maybe someone makes one if you can run if you're a Uniswap uh, part of the Uniswap decentralized sequencer validator set. I don't know. Maybe they'll be like, you have shown to be able to do this, or maybe there'll be one for pre-comps or ZK provers later. I'm not quite sure. There probably will, show me the incentives. I'll show you the outcome type of situation. Right now, Techni credential has worked because there is demand from protocols looking for operators to run DVs. And, aside from raising your hand, and or aside from having big brand reputation or putting up an economic bond. So unless you have an economic bond, big brand reputation, or you just put up your hand and how am I going to trust you? A credential really helps. And Oshin, maybe you have some opinions on that as well.
No, I think you hit on the main ones. I think as for Techni itself, we do testnet waves periodically. I have to keep an eye on socials. And I think on mainnet, it's pretty much right in. We'd like to apply for tell us we're running DVs and it's 60 days of performance, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we actually just rolled out sort of like perma wave. So now anyone, so my apologies for not with a clear call to action there. I'm usually more of an educator than a sales guy usually. So you head to the Obol Discord. Anyone can activate on testnet or mainnet and sort of very easily apply to earn that Techni credential. Within the vision of Techni is sort of like eventually it's like sort of automated where like if you run that distributed validator and it's performing well, you will get your Techni. For now, there's like very, very light friction. You request a monitoring credential, you insert the monitoring credential, and we kind of report back when you finish the amount of time you need to run it. But yeah, head to the Obol Discord. We've tried to design that as a shelling point for the broader Obol collective, and looking forward to feedback. So if anyone hops in there and feels like it's too difficult for you, let us know. But so far, 3,000 plus people have done it on testnet, 600 plus people have done it on mainnet, and more operators the better, more opportunities, more rewards.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for this time of talking with us and the community here and fielding all the questions that were kind of bubbling up from our minds as we think about all this. And I think we're just excited to be learning and excited to see what you guys are building progress. So congrats on that. And let's see, I think in the last couple of minutes here we do, let's see, we have a POAP. So at the end of these calls we love to give out a POAP. And we did even talk about things like credentialing and POAPs and all this stuff and how they're kind of related. So, Remy, if we have that view, instructions are quite similar to what we've had on previous community calls. And I think it's also using the POAP airship method, right? So this is where you send, it's the 0.0009 ETH to that address that's on the slide, and you can do it over any of those networks, but it is minted by the mint is powered by Arbitrum 1, and so we wanted to call that out here. That's the first time we've done it on the Arbitrum 1 L2, so we're excited about that. And you can mint it over, or you can send it through the airship though over Arbitrum 1 or mainnet or base or optimism. So
amazing.
Go collect that. But yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it, and happy to see the developments here. And in the future, we'll be having more community calls. We don't have anything specifically scheduled yet, but there's a few in the works, so be on the lookout for that. And if you have ideas, if anyone has ideas for things they want to hear about, feel free to bring them up in the Discord, ask questions about this one in the Discord or on Reddit, or on Twitter. And yeah, we'll keep the conversation going on all of that, and see you again on the next community calls.
Yeah, if anyone is doing research or has done research, and I talked to Chris Rocknet about this, and I would love if people, because we're doing this at DV Labs, and people in the Obol Collective are very interested in this, and operators all around the world is like mapping out these different opportunities that are to come. Because right now with Obol Collective, we have hard opportunities that you can have now. We have other opportunities that are coming, and would love to talk about the broader landscape, right? In line with expanded validator capabilities, but also all these based applications. And then you go one level further out is like decentralized sequencers or provers, and you even have AVSs, and it's like, and some people may not like this because it gets away from the core Ethereum validator stack, depending how far you get out. Like once you're running distributed validators on Monad, like that's technically a different chain, right? But I think that if you are an operator, you like to run infrastructure at your home to decentralize Ethereum, I expect those capabilities to sort of expand over time to have more opportunities and more rewards. And we'll also be, there's discussions in the among the Obol Collective community members to potentially have a sort of rewards program in the future. So look forward to talking about that on the governance forum, where if you are running an Ethereum validator, distributed validator, there could be some extra opportunity there as well. And I expect that to be quite attractive based on my spreadsheets.
And the last call out I might sneak in as well is if you have put together anything that you think is a public good for the decentralization of Ethereum, particularly for distributed validators, staking, home staking, educational, technical, things like it. We'll be coming out with more communication next week about our first retroactive fund, including an application form. Well, we'd love for you to check that out and consider applying and getting recognized for your work, decentralizing the world computer.
Yes, huge call out there. RAF1 will be announced soon. RAF1 is focused on public goods. If you like Ethereum and public goods, if you've done things already retroactively, prepare to share that information, and hopefully everyone in the Obol Collective will delegate to delegates who will respect that contribution. And so, hey, your Obol tokens will be useful, solo stakers, rocket pool node operators, and CSM operators.
Just so we're clear here, RAF1 is your first public funding round, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
We'll announce it next week.
Cool. So the party's in the governance forum, and anywhere else people want to reach out and talk. Cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like there'll be some more rolling things then to pay attention to over the next week or so here. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's a complicated ecosystem, but we're lucky to be part of Ethereum and have you guys and so many people, and we're all here doing what's best for Ethereum. So it's always good to have conversations like this.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate the time here, guys. Yeah, I think does that otherwise cover it though, I think. So thank you all for joining. All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. Cool. Thanks.
Squad.
Bye-bye.
Squad!